Hello, all. I hope you are doing well in these extraordinary times. Welcome to the Fintech Finance Virtual Arena where we're hosting you today. Today, we are joined again by Alan Kelly from Torstone. How are you doing today, Alan? All down to your end?
Yeah, all good. Thank you. Very nice to meet you, and looking forward to the chat today.
Absolutely. It's hopefully all gonna be quite nice and straightforward. So we're gonna talk a little bit around your SaaS platform because I mean I love the discussion of is the cloud a good thing? Because every single time I go, well, I mean, it's obviously a good thing. There's this, and this, but then people always bring in an extra thing that makes you think, oh my goodness, there's that element there that we can bring in. So first of all, right off the bat, looking at your flagship SaaS platform, I mean, it's been a considerable success among sell-side firms. How do you expect to disrupt the risk management technology market? And within that, what are some of the priorities?
Okay, well, so my name's Alan Kelly. For those of you who don't know me, and my background is essentially 25 years in building technology and finance, and focusing on risk and derivatives in particular. And on the risk technology side at Torstone, we have a very mature market and credit risk platform. And we have a team that really understands risk around that. That really, has been across this domain for many years now. The Torstone Risk Analytics platform, in particular, has been in production for over 10 years, and it was actually built by an investment bank for credit and market risk. So it's very competently supporting risk managers around the world. Our priority is to meet the needs of market and credit risk management in buy and sell side firms, in either an in-house deployed solutions or using our cloud-hosted solution. And we're keen to promote the new pricing backend as well. So we're now providing pricing analytics that make all the risk calculations on behalf of clients where they want to use our models instead of their own. And we're using the cloud really to our advantage here. So risk typically is growing in complexity continuously, so that the number of risk factors is always growing, the number of stress tests around those risk factors is growing, the amount of data volume and the number of positions are growing. And that's just making it very difficult, if you don't use the cloud, to scale the infrastructure to support those calculations. And so the cloud's really helping us there, essentially burst out the scalability where it's necessary, and also reduce the time it takes to do those calculations in total. Typically you're wanting to run some very complex simulations, and they can take a very long time unless you're using multiple CPUs, especially if you're talking about rainbow options, which are essentially very complex Monte Carlo simulations on a basket option type product. It's very powerful to use the cloud in those situations.
Absolutely. I just want to go into one element you mentioned there, which is around obviously some of your clients see that they have their own risk appetites and such. How does, from a technological perspective, how are they able to work with their own algorithms, but also with yours and other third parties? How does the cloud enable that collaboration?
I guess our platform it has been designed to integrate. Well, it was originally designed to be deployed in-house and work with clients' existing in-house trading platforms to do the pricing and Greek calculations as a kind of back-end service. We've moved towards our own services on the back end to do pricing. So we have 150 credit derivatives, fixed income derivatives and equity derivatives pricing models, which we use at the back end. But some clients, they want to use their own models for certain products, and they're happy for us to provide models for the rest, and maybe they don't even have models for certain products. And so we're finding that's quite a nice way to approach the problem, is have this hybrid. Also gives you that ability to do model risk analysis where you've got maybe your own models, but you want to just double check that the calculations are consistent with a third party. But to be able to integrate those two sets of models, you need to have very relatively sophisticated and secure set of APIs in order for your cloud analytics to integrate cleanly with an in-house solution, or with us providing the managed risk solution as well. So essentially a two-way integration that's using something very secure, which is what we provide through our API services.
So I mean, you already have a relatively mature and functionality-rich market risk and credit risk platform.
Yeah.
What's the unique selling point? What differentiates you in the market, and typically who would be your kind of client that you would be looking to onboard?
Yeah, sure. So our typical client would be an investment bank, a hedge fund, a portfolio manager, an asset or investment manager. Um, it's the platform that's used by traders, quants, portfolio managers, or risk managers in particular. And what differentiates us really in the market is that we can deploy in-house and provide a cloud-hosted solution. We support real-time streaming, which is quite progressive in terms of architecturally how that works. And we have a SaaS platform that we've built around it. So we have our own web-based risk dashboard environment that sits around all of our services. We cope with massive data sets, so this is quite an important, unique selling point. We support billions, I mean literally billions of exposures per day into our optimized risk data warehouse, which can cope with some very large clients, really, with huge amounts of positions. We can deal with turning the risk handle on that. We have instant access to our data through a cube-based aggregation environment. So we have all of our risk data warehouse sitting underneath essentially an aggregation engine which aggregates all of the risk into a cube, which is available through Excel. So we've actually embraced Excel as a primary tool for financial professionals who can then access the cube data directly from Excel using the pivot table interface on the cube. So it's kind of native support in Excel for that. But what it does is it provides instant drill down accessibility to all of the underlying risk data, right down to the position level risk metrics. And it provides also in the cube for non-additive risk, such as HVAR. So we can provide portfolio VAR in the cube, and you can drill down to it at any portfolio level within your book structure. It's extremely flexible, contemporary web app risk dashboard environment. We call it really a front to risk system. It's designed specifically for that intersection between risk management and trading. So it brings them together and gives a lot of pre-trade kind of tooling in and around the risk management kind of outputs. Transparency to data is also really quite unique to us. So we've been hearing many times how third-party risk platforms are black boxes. So we really wanted to break that open and provide really full transparency to the data as well as the output and the calculations. And so what we've provided through our data vendor negotiations is full redistribution of the input data. So we can actually provide the risk managers access to the input data to all calculations as well as the output data, and access to the models directly ad hoc in Excel even, so they can really dig down into the calculations. Pricing of all common financial security types plus many complex securities, so we have our own pricing models. That's quite unique, and those models were developed over the last 15 years and used in really in earnest in trading, in market making, in a number of organizations. They're really bench tested. Primary and time bucketed sensitivities and Basel capital calculations, we support all of them that we know of. Market and credit risk aggregation, so real time limit monitoring, that's something else we do. So factor limits monitoring in real time according to positions being booked. Time series data quality management. So this is really also very key to the process. Without good quality input data, it's hard to rely on the outputs as being something you could base capital regulation on, capital requirements on. So we have our own time series management tooling, which lets you essentially screen automatically using our sort of artificial intelligence technology to find data anomalies within any time series and configure that to find specific types of anomaly automatically and screen for those, and actually have a sign-off process. The idea being that the risk manager can actually then decide that the data set for this particular day's worth of risk calculations is adequate and has signed it off. The ability for us to support multiple surface parameterization methodologies, so a lot of the input data needs to be parameterized, like fault surfaces. Multiple market data vendor sources. We support a lot of different market data. The market data side is quite interesting because a lot of clients they really don't have that market data that would be required to do the pricing, so we provide that. And then also the orchestration of the pricing calculation. We even have our own proprietary technology called Wildfire, which actually distributes our calculations across cloud grid technology. The OLAP cube side of things in the warehouse. And really to be able to fully search the data set. So we've got billions of rows of data in the database. How do you make sense of it all? Well, we've got at least one neat interface to that, which is an Elasticsearch interface, so we can actually search across the entire data set for anything that we care to want to look for. And the APIs. So really, the last thing I was going to mention is the APIs. We have very sophisticated APIs for clients to access not just the risk side of things, but also the pricing side. So we have clients that have just interest in pricing securities, and that's it. And the risk is a second thing.
So my head is going like this. That's absolutely brilliant. So I'm struggling to keep up. So just to kind of sort of backtrack a wee bit, because there's a lot there to unpack, and my God, there's a lot of passion there. So within obviously this data warehouse, there seems obviously that my overarching kind of takeaway from this is there's a very large degree of flexibility in terms of, well, as you mentioned, things like sort of pricing elements. But I have got to ask, why use Excel? Because I mean, if you have these kind of API set that can link in, why would you have that kind of step in, step out?
Yeah, so we found Excel to be, well, first of all, Excel has always been the kind of de facto standard, tool for any financial profession to analyze data. And of course, Excel can be abused, and you can build very ugly spreadsheets which are hard to maintain and so on. But one of the things you can do in Excel is access data from other systems very easily. And one of the most interesting interfaces we've found that's really useful is the ability to pivot data in a pivot table in Excel, but pivoting data that's not in Excel, pivoting data that's held in an aggregation engine's cube, so the online analytical process, the OLAP cubes for risk that we support. And actually, you can drill down instantly into the data. So the cubes that we process and we build, and we incrementally update them in real time as well. The interface in Excel, that is really just a window into that data set that's very powerful in Excel, the tool that they've got most prominently on their desktop. The risk managers can immediately drill down into the data and start, drilling into depths of dimensions, be them, business line, position hierarchy, instrument type, counterparty, whichever way they want to look at the aggregated risk data, they can drill down instantly in Excel. So it's really just a viewing interface. The other thing we've done in Excel is we've built an add-in. So we actually have our own Torstone Analytics add-in, which lets our users access the models. So we actually have all of our 150 models available through the add-in. And you can very, very quickly with the add-in select an ISIN, which would be the identifier of the security, and then instantly price it. So it dynamically pulls in all of the market data, all the terms data into Excel. So you have all the information in front of you, full transparency to all of the inputs to the model, and the outputs then immediately being shown on the screen using our cloud services. So it's actually pointing at our cloud analytics service backend. But in Excel, you've got all the inputs and outputs, and you can modify them. So you can go in and manipulate your vol surface, you can change your credit curve, you can update the yield curves, however you want, any assumptions you want, the underlying price, for example, and then immediately see the effect that has on the Greeks and the price of the security, and you can see the terms and everything. So it's a very nice way to do exploratory analysis of a model, to do model risk analysis, for example.
Absolutely. I have to admit, I was like, wait, what? But then at the same time, I expect every, hell, even the likes of Facebook, if you want to upload a target list, it's Excel. I mean, it's the as you said, it's de facto.
It's one interface though. It's not our only interface. We have our web app, which is a SaaS platform. It's very state of the art, very contemporary, and it allows a risk manager to build a dashboard of all of the position, P&L, risk exposures, and high-level risk metrics like VAR and stress test results, all in one kind of area of a web app, and configure that and have that as kind of like a main tool to use, a main application. And we also have the API integration as well. So there's different ways of using it. It just depends which suits your purpose, really.
Absolutely. Well, I want to look a little bit on the regulation side of things, because I always feel there's kind of two elements of regulation. There's trying to tick the box, when there's also trying to adhere with the spirit of regulation. So looking at your analytics platform, what are some of the compliance problems that solves, both in terms of ticking the box reporting, but also in what the spirit of the regulation is all about?
Yeah, so we've been really across the regulatory environment for many, many years now, and Basel 1, 2, 3 and 4, which is to be, I think, delayed until January 2023, but it's certainly being prepared for. These are the regulatory kind of environments in capital markets that we've been supporting from a market and credit risk perspective throughout. And our platform supports a number of different high-level risk metrics which deliver on those. For example, historical value at risk, which is essentially looking at the potential losses you might make today based on the history of events that's happened over the last, say, 250 days. Apply those market data shifts to today's positions and see what the P&L vector looks like, and pick essentially rank it and pick a confidence level of, say, 95% or 99% to really determine at some confidence what you might lose today at worst case. Looking at expected shortfall as essentially capturing the tail events within that kind of 1% or 5% to take an average rather than ignore potential very high loss but very unlikely events. Stressed VAR as well is something else we've also supported. And then the hypothetical and stress test scenarios as well. So we've built very powerful stress testing support into the platform and have done for many years. The ability for risk managers to actually capture dates around a particular event, that might be over many years or it might be over days or months, and to really essentially label that as a specific event. That might be their financial crisis of 2007, 2008. It might be COVID. It might be some crash on a particular day. But essentially, it captures the market data shifts for all input data into the models for that period, which can then be retrospectively applied to your current positions as a kind of a specific historical stress test. And then we do hypothetical stress tests as well. So creating these grids of stresses. So, stressing the underlying price move, 5, 10, 20%, volatility shifting up and down, credit curves widening, narrowing, but within a three-dimensional grid, if you like. So you're getting this kind of view of stress in all directions to see where your sensitivities might lie in your entire portfolio, but then be able to drill down into specific books where you don't like a particular figure, be able to drill into it. So, in the spirit of really what we're trying to, the regulation is trying to do, we're trying to give the risk managers as many opportunities to explore the risk kind of landscape as possible, while at the same time providing the calculation outputs for capital calculations that they must, that the banks and other financial organisations must meet. Basel IV is the latest developments. Basel III was really post-financial crisis and bringing in credit risk. So a lot of dependency between firms on each other, and that was bringing some issues in terms of the market not functioning correctly. We've obviously kept pace with that. Basel IV is the latest one, so FRTB support, you will have heard, so a fundamental review of the trading book. It's really identifying that the trading books and the banking books within a large organisation are quite separate, but they got kind of commingled and they were distorting sort of the picture. So they're kind of trying, the Basel IV and the FRTB is trying to separate the responsibilities there a little bit and really understand to what extent you can rely on a bank's internal models, and if we can just appreciate that that can, if you're reducing your capital requirement by using your own models, really there ought to be some flaw on that. There might be some other kind of things you need to take into consideration. So it's really supporting that whole process as well that we've been doing, and the support for non-moderable risk factors, which is required for FRTB, we've got that too. So we're just keeping pace with that. There's work to do still to complete that journey right the way through 2023, but essentially we work with our partners and to really deliver the outputs and the risk reporting required to meet those regulations. And we've really kept pace with all of them, and our platform can scale in terms of the ability to cope with the additional stresses that are required.
Brilliant, excellent. Now, earlier this year, you launched a white paper, digitalization of the sell-side risk management. What were some of the conclusions of the white paper, and how has it had some sort of effect in the way that you're directing the analytics, the Torstone risk analytics product?
Yeah. So the paper was the 8-group one, digitalization of sell-side risk management. The conclusions that I guess they came to, it was a little bit of a review of like the effect of COVID as well. The risk technology will be pivotal in the monitoring and managing of risk during the period of the COVID period. The trend being, in banks, really sell side towards smarter risk systems integration and decreasing the total cost of ownership, really, of that, and how risk teams are becoming more integrated with trading teams. Banks embracing digitalization more and more, including AI and machine learning. Push towards better data management and technology architecture is essential, really, for management of increased data volumes and complexity. Is something I mentioned just a few minutes ago, and legacy tech really being a bit of a hindrance to that process, and then cloud hosting really displacing on-premise deployments. Required really for rigorous risk calculations. Essentially, the more complex and more voluminous those risk calculations become, the harder it is to continue to support that on-premise technology, unless you've got a very, very forward-thinking infrastructure team. Cloud is really making that possible, and it's almost every day we're hearing organisations asking how they can migrate to the cloud. So Torstone Risk Analytics it really has been delivering very well against all of those conclusions, really, and we were quite happy with them because we're really well positioned to meet those challenges. And we have a very flexible architecture. It's highly performant already, and it's cloud hosted. So essentially we're kind of one step ahead there, and we're able to scale with ever increasing risk complexity as well, which really sort of talks to that data volume point. Legacy technology, we've had quite a lot of experience of actually migrating clients off of legacy platforms into more modern technology architectures. So we've been through that loop a few times. So hopefully we're well placed to continue to do that for clients that are looking to move to the cloud.
That's the thing about legacy. It's never even. It's the move that seems to be terrifying. Rightly so, because I mean, I love the idea it's as easy as boom, switch, sorted, but I gather it's not. There's quite a lot, because you when working at FI, you can't be down 0.0001% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, what we find with the trying to rationalise a decision to move to the cloud for most organisations is a fairly fraught process, because the total cost of ownership is very hard to analyse and calculate. And typically, if you look at the cost of your in-house hardware and then compare it to the like-for-like cost of a cloud platform, it actually doesn't look that cost compelling on the face of it. But then when you factor in the cost of the team that's looking to support it, how much it costs to refresh it every 5 years, the lack of opportunity you have really for scaling quickly, and there's other sort of more hidden costs, it becomes very compelling. But most organizations find it hard to go through that process. They just get to a point where they have a bit of a meltdown and say, we just need to migrate to the cloud, and they just try to go for it. So it tends to be a bit of on the back foot really at that point. But I think most banks, and actually most banks now are really embracing cloud. Initially they were quite wary of the security aspect of really the data and the process and the IP of the bank really, or other large organisation moving into the cloud. But I think almost every organisation now has some element of cloud, as part of their infrastructure, and then migrating there. But migration can take a very long time. They're multiple years typically.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things obviously that makes things a lot easier in the cloud is bringing platforms together, that whole ecosystem. So with that in mind, are there any synergies between the risk analytics platform and the Torstone, the post-trade, the processing platform?
Yeah, this is really an important point actually, because we've got, essentially risk depends on two main inputs. You have market data, which is ticking in the markets, and that would include underlying prices, yield curves, credit curves, volatility surfaces, FX rates, and so on. And then you have your positions, and those positions are essentially, how much of a given security you hold, and then from that you can calculate its price and its valuation. And the valuation is essentially the figure you're using to determine your profit and loss. The difference between yesterday's valuation and today's, for example, would be your P&L. So in order to calculate your P&L and then your risk, which is essentially how much sensitivity your current value has to the market movements and potentially your counterparties as well, it's dependent on the position and the market data. So you really need to have not only a live feed of market data, you need a live feed of your positions, to the extent that whenever a trade is booked, you're able to see an update in your position, and that ticks through into your P&L and into your risk. And so really what we're trying to do with our system is provide real-time risk, and that depends on real-time positions. Torstone's post-trade platform has real-time positions. It has a real-time backend which holds your positions, and we get to see that position up front before final settlement activity has happened. So we get as soon as the trade's booked, we get to have that tick come through and can provide essentially a trigger for the risk calculation, as well as whenever market data ticks. So when either the position ticks or market data ticks, we can recalculate risk, and then the tablet which shows the risk information can tick as well. So you've got the position tick, market data tick, and the risk tick, all in synchronization, really. So with Torstone's post-trade platform already in place, it's very easy for us to have access to that position service, which is what we need. The other thing we get is actual hands-off P&L, which is calculated in the middle office of aspect of the post-trade environment. And we need that to do back testing. So in the regulatory environment, you need to be able to back test your value at risk calculations. And what that means is, if you're producing a 99% value at risk figure, you really need to prove that it's correct. And the way you prove it is you check that essentially your P&L is no worse than the 99% VAR 99% of the time. And so you're looking back at the history to check your P&L versus the VAR figure and back test it to see that it's correct. With respect to your P&L, so we get that P&L from the middle office in the post-trade platform, and that just comes for free with the integration. So it's a great integration. It's a great synergy between the risk and the post-trade environment at Torstone.
I like the idea of having to download a report, have someone analyze it, and then re-upload that and do that maybe in batches. Kind of what once a week will be all right. Is that not the better way of doing it?
Yeah, that was the old way. The sort of batch process, T+1. Come in the morning, get your end of day risk reports for the day before. But that's really not cutting it anymore. We've got to make decisions intraday in terms of risk, and the risk management team are working closely with the front office. That's why we call it front to risk now, and they need to be able to make pre-trade decisions. If they put on a particular trade, will it break certain risk limits? Not an after the fact thing, and not the next day. Certainly, it's just not adequate. So we really need to provide a real-time solution going forwards. That's really the future.
Absolutely. The last thing I want to touch on is just in a summary, in a nutshell. Why would a buy or a sell side firm, why would they choose Torstone Risk Analytics? This is your sales pitch, your chance to put on the Gordon Gecko braces. Okay,
well, we have a mature market and credit risk solution that meets capital markets regulation. We support a hybrid of in-house client in-house pricing models and our own. We have 150 models of our own across credit, fixed income, and equity derivatives. We support massive data sets, up to billions of rows per day, with instant drill down capability into aggregated data via Excel and through a very state-of-the-art web app, or through API integration. We support real-time risk streaming, and stress tests can be added by our risk management themselves. That doesn't require developers to write new code. They can add them using the configuration metadata schema tooling that we have in the platform. The platform architecture has been developed over many years to perform these risk calculations and aggregations very, very quickly. So it's fast. The emphasis is on data quality and time series data management. That's tooling that's taken quite a long time to evolve to be really adequate and capable. And we are able to work in partnership with clients very closely as well. So we actually typically work hand in hand doing implementation pieces with clients to develop custom features or integrations. And we're cloud-based, so we can scale to compute as required, and that goes as risk factors and stress tests and positions and financial security complexity increases. We can cope with that with the cloud-based support we have, and the clients can actually determine how much compute they want, actually, because the more compute you have, the faster things run, but the more expensive it becomes, of course. So we give the flexibility to control that. And then we support potential future market and credit risk management with relative ease as well, with our flexible risk frameworks. So we're really trying to be future-proof where we can. That's how I would summarise the platform.